John Harris, a dedicated police officer, made a life-changing decision 20 years ago when he adopted 6 unwanted black girls. He raised them with love and commitment, despite the challenges they faced as a multiracial family in a small town. Now, 2 decades later, John's health is failing and the girls are all grown. But what they do next to repay the man who gave them everything will leave you speechless. What moved John to adopt them in the first place? And how did his act of kindness ripple through their lives? Stay tuned to find out. And before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from today. If this story of love, resilience, and gratitude resonates with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. The small town of Millbrook nestled in the heart of America's heartland, where oak-lined streets met quaint storefronts and everyone knew their neighbors by name. At the center of this tight-knit community stood Officer John Harris, a fixture of law enforcement for nearly 2 decades. His experienced eyes told the story of countless nights on patrol, keeping watch over the town he called home. John's cruiser rolled slowly down Main Street, his keen eyes scanning the familiar surroundings. As he passed Mrs. Thompson's flower shop, she waved cheerfully from behind a display of bright petunias. John nodded back, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Morning, Mrs. Thompson," he called out, his voice warm. "Oh, John, will we see you at the church picnic this Sunday?" she asked, her eyes twinkling with hope. John's smile faltered slightly. "We'll see, Mrs. Thompson. Duty calls, you know." As he drove away, John couldn't help but feel a twinge of guilt. He knew Mrs. Thompson meant well, but social gatherings had become increasingly difficult since Sarah's passing. His wife's absence left a void that seemed to grow with each passing year. Back at the station, John's fellow officers greeted him with a mix of respect and caution. They admired his dedication to the job, but his stern demeanor often kept them at arm's length. "Harris, got a minute?" called out Sergeant Mike Peterson, John's longtime friend and colleague. John nodded, following Mike into his office. "What's on your mind, Mike?" Mike leaned back in his chair, concern etched on his face. "John, I've been meaning to talk to you. The guys and I, well, we're worried about you. It's been 10 years since Sarah. Don't you think it's time to start living again?" John's jaw tightened, his eyes fixed on a point just over Mike's shoulder. "I appreciate the concern, Mike, but I'm fine. The job keeps me busy enough." Mike sighed, recognizing the familiar walls John had built around himself. All right. Just remember, you've got friends here. We're here if you need us." As John left the office, he couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness that seemed to follow him everywhere. His house, once filled with the promise of a family, now stood as a silent reminder of what could have been. Each night, he'd return to the quiet rooms, surrounded by memories of Sarah and the children they'd dreamed of having. Little did John know that fate was about to intervene in the most unexpected way. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when the call came in. John was on patrol, his mind wandering to the upcoming winter and the repairs his old house needed. The crackle of the radio snapped him back to attention. "All units, we have a situation at 1456 Elm Street. Possible abandonment case involving multiple minors. Proceed with caution." John's heart raced as he flipped on his siren and sped towards the address. As he pulled up to the small, dilapidated house, he could hear the faint sound of crying coming from inside. Approaching cautiously, John knocked on the door. "Police! Is anyone home?" The crying intensified, and John made the decision to enter. What he found inside would change his life forever. 6 young girls, ranging from barely a toddler to a preteen, huddled together in the corner of a barren living room. Their wide eyes, filled with fear and uncertainty, locked onto John as he entered. "It's okay," John said softly, crouching down to their level. "I'm here to help. Can you tell me what happened?" The oldest girl, her braids neatly arranged despite the chaos around her, spoke up. "Our parents, there was an accident. They didn't come home. We've been waiting, but—" Her voice trailed off, choked with emotion. John's heart broke for these children. As he radioed for backup and child protective services, he couldn't help but feel a connection to these 6 frightened souls. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Social workers arrived, taking statements and assessing the situation. John learned that the girls' parents had been killed in a car accident earlier that week. With no immediate family to take them in, the girls were facing separation and placement in the foster care system. As John watched the social workers discussing the girls' fate, he overheard snippets of their conversation. Difficult to place all 6 together. Older ones might have trouble finding homes. Cultural challenges for potential adoptive families. Something stirred within John, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. He found himself speaking before he even realized what he was saying. What if I took them? The room fell silent, all eyes turning to John in disbelief. Even John himself seemed shocked by his own words. The lead social worker, a kind-faced woman named Linda, approached John carefully. "Officer Harris, I appreciate your concern, but taking in 6 children is a massive responsibility. Not to mention the cultural differences and potential challenges you'd face as a single white man adopting black children." John nodded, his mind racing. "I understand that, but I can't bear the thought of these girls being separated. They've already lost so much." Linda studied John's face, seeing the determination in his eyes. "Why don't we discuss this further at the station? It's not a decision to be made lightly." As they prepared to leave, the oldest girl approached John, her young face etched with worry. "Sir, what's going to happen to us?" John knelt down, meeting her gaze. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Amara," she replied softly. "Amara, I want you to know that I'm going to do everything I can to keep you and your sisters together. Can you be brave for me and look after your sisters while we figure things out?" Amara nodded solemnly, her eyes never leaving John's face as he stood and followed the social workers out of the house. Back at the station, John found himself in a whirlwind of discussions, paperwork, and questioning. His colleagues looked on in disbelief as he adamantly expressed his desire to adopt all 6 girls. "John, have you lost your mind?" Mike exclaimed, pulling his friend aside. "You can't just adopt 6 kids on a whim." John ran a hand through his hair, his voice low but firm. "It's not a whim, Mike. Those girls need a home, and I need a purpose. I can't explain it, but I feel like this is what I'm meant to do." As the night wore on, John faced a barrage of questions from social workers, lawyers, and child welfare experts. They probed his motivations, his ability to provide for 6 children, and his understanding of the cultural challenges he would face. Through it all, John remained steadfast. "I know it won't be easy," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "but I've spent my life protecting this community. Now, I have a chance to make a real difference in these girls' lives. I can't turn my back on them." Linda, the social worker, watched John carefully throughout the process. As the night drew to a close, she pulled him aside. "Officer Harris, I want you to understand the gravity of what you're proposing. These girls have been through a traumatic experience. They'll need patience, understanding, and a lot of love. Are you prepared for that?" John met her gaze, his eyes shining with a mix of determination and vulnerability. "Ms. Linda, I've been alone for a long time. I thought my chance at having a family was gone. But meeting those girls, it woke something up inside me. I know it'll be hard, but I'm ready to face whatever challenges come our way." Linda nodded slowly, a small smile forming on her lips. "Well, Officer Harris, it seems like we have a lot of work ahead of us. But if you're willing to put in the effort, I believe we can make this happen." As dawn broke over Millbrook, John found himself sitting in his cruiser outside the temporary foster home where the girls had been placed for the night. His mind raced with thoughts of the future, of bedtime stories and school projects, of learning to braid hair and navigate cultural differences. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Taking a deep breath, John stepped out of his car and walked towards the house. As he knocked on the door, he could hear the sound of young voices inside. The door opened, revealing Amara's hopeful face. "Officer Harris," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. John knelt down, smiling warmly at her and the curious faces of her sisters peeking out from behind her. "Hello, Amara. I promised I'd do everything I could to keep you girls together, remember?" Amara nodded, her eyes wide with anticipation. "Well," John continued, his heart pounding in his chest, "how would you and your sisters like to come live with me? To be a family? The silence that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity. Then, slowly, Amara's face broke into a radiant smile. She turned to her sisters, nodding excitedly, and suddenly John found himself engulfed in a tangle of small arms and tearful laughter. As he hugged these 6 precious girls, John felt the walls around his heart crumbling. He knew the road ahead would be challenging, filled with ups and downs, laughter and tears. But in that moment, holding his new daughters close, John Harris felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope. The small town of Millbrook was about to witness an extraordinary journey of love, growth, and the unbreakable bonds of family. And for John Harris, the adventure of a lifetime was just beginning. The first rays of sunlight crept through the curtains of John Harris's once quiet home, now filled with the gentle rustling of 6 young girls stirring from their sleep. It had been 3 months since John had made the life-altering decision to adopt Amara, Simone, Tiana, Zoe, Layla, and little Jasmine, and every day brought new challenges and unexpected joys. John stood in the hallway, coffee in hand, steeling himself for the morning routine that still felt like a whirlwind. As he opened the door to the girls' shared bedroom, he was met with a chorus of sleepy greetings and the sight of tangled hair and rumpled pajamas. "Good morning, girls," John said, his voice warm but tinged with uncertainty. "Time to get ready for school." Amara, the oldest at 12, was already up and helping 4-year-old Jasmine out of bed. "Dad," she called, using the title that still made John's heart skip a beat. "Can you help with Jasmine's hair? I need to get Zoe and Layla started on breakfast." John nodded, a knot forming in his stomach. Hair. It was still his Achilles heel. He approached Jasmine, who looked up at him with trusting eyes, her curls a wild halo around her face. "All right, sweetheart," he said, picking up a brush with determination. "Let's see what we can do." 15 minutes and several tearful protests later, Jasmine's hair looked less like the neat braids John had envisioned and more like a lopsided bird's nest. He sighed, feeling a familiar wave of inadequacy wash over him. "I'm sorry, Jasmine," he said softly. "I'm still learning." Jasmine reached up and patted his cheek. "It's okay, Daddy. You tried." As they made their way downstairs, John couldn't help but notice the skeptical looks from passers-by as he ushered the girls into his car. Mrs. Thompson, usually so friendly, watched from her porch with a furrowed brow. John felt a pang of frustration but pushed it aside, focusing on getting everyone buckled in safely. The drive to school was filled with chatter and last-minute homework questions. John dropped off the older girls first, his heart clenching as he watched them walk into the building. He knew they faced challenges he couldn't fully understand, and it weighed heavily on him. At the police station, John was met with a mix of curious glances and outright stares. His partner, Mike, approached him with a concerned expression. "John, can we talk?" Mike asked, gesturing towards an empty break room. Once inside, Mike didn't mince words. "Look, John, I know you think you're doing a good thing here, but have you really thought this through? Taking on 6 kids, especially, well, it's a lot for anyone, let alone a single guy like you." John felt a flare of anger, but took a deep breath before responding. "Mike, I appreciate your concern, but those girls are my family now. It's not easy, but it's right. I need you to have my back on this." Mike held up his hands in surrender. All right. Just know what you're getting into. That's all I'm saying." As the weeks turned into months, John found himself navigating a world he'd never imagined. He learned to cook meals that satisfied 6 different palates, mastered the art of braiding, well, almost, and became an expert at mediating sisterly squabbles. But more than that, he was learning about a culture and experiences so different from his own. One Sunday morning, as John struggled to get the girls ready for church, he realized he'd never actually attended the predominantly black church they'd gone to with their parents. Feeling out of place but determined, he decided to join them. As they walked into the church, John felt every eye on him. The girls, sensing his discomfort, moved closer. Amara took his hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. The service was unlike anything John had experienced. The music was vibrant, the preaching passionate, and the sense of community palpable. As he watched his daughters sway to the music, their faces alight with joy, John felt something shift inside him. This was part of who they were, and he wanted to embrace it fully. After the service, an older woman approached them, her eyes kind but searching. "Well now, you must be the officer who took in these sweet girls. I'm Mother Henrietta." John extended his hand, smiling nervously. "John Harris, ma'am. It's nice to meet you." Mother Henrietta looked at him for a long moment before breaking into a warm smile. "You've taken on quite a challenge, Officer Harris, but I can see the love in your eyes. You come to me if you need any help with these little ones, you hear?" John felt a wave of relief wash over him. "Thank you, Mother Henrietta. I might just take you up on that." As the months passed, John found himself leaning on the church community more and more. He attended potlucks, learning to make collard greens and cornbread under the watchful eye of Mother Henrietta. He listened to stories of struggle and triumph, gaining a deeper understanding of the world his daughters were growing up in. At home, the bond between John and the girls grew stronger every day. Each daughter's unique personality blossomed, and John marveled at the young women they were becoming. Amara, the oldest, was the natural leader, always looking out for her sisters. John often found her helping the younger ones with homework or resolving conflicts with a maturity beyond her years. Simone, at 10, was the artist of the family. Her room was filled with drawings and paintings, and John made sure to hang her latest creations on the fridge with pride. Tiana, 8, was the athlete. John spent countless evenings in the backyard, teaching her to throw a football or practicing her jump shot. Zoe, 6, was the bookworm. John had to institute a no reading at the dinner table rule after finding her nose buried in a book one too many times during family meals. Layla, 5, was the performer. She loved to sing and dance, often putting on shows for the family in the living room. And little Jasmine, now 4, was the peacemaker. Her sweet nature and infectious giggles could diffuse even the tensest situations. One evening, as John tucked the younger girls into bed, he overheard Amara and Simone whispering in their room. Concerned, he knocked softly on the door. "Everything okay in here?" he asked, poking his head in. Amara and Simone exchanged glances before Amara spoke up. "Dad, can we talk to you about something?" John sat on the edge of the bed, his heart racing. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Simone, her voice small, said, "Some kids at school, they've been saying mean things. About us. About you." John felt a surge of anger, quickly followed by a deep sadness. He'd known this day would come, but it didn't make it any easier. "What kind of mean things, sweetheart?" Amara jumped in, her voice tight with emotion. "They say we're not a real family. That you can't be our real dad because you're white and we're black. They say you probably just felt sorry for us." John took a deep breath, fighting back tears. He pulled both girls into a tight hug, his voice thick as he spoke. "Listen to me, both of you. We are a real family. Love makes a family, not the color of our skin. I didn't adopt you out of pity. I adopted you because I love you, because you're my daughters in every way that matters." He pulled back, looking into their tear-streaked faces. "People might not understand our family, and that's okay. What matters is that we understand it. We love each other, we support each other, and we're stronger together. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like you don't belong or that our love isn't real." As the girls clung to him, John felt a fierce protectiveness wash over him. He knew he couldn't shield them from every harsh reality, but he could give them the tools to face the world with strength and pride. The next day, John reached out to Mother Henrietta, seeking advice on how to address these issues with the girls. She invited him over for tea, listening patiently as he poured out his concerns. "John," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "you're doing a wonderful job with those girls. But there are some things they'll need to learn that you can't teach them. Not because you don't want to, but because you haven't lived it." She patted his hand. "I'll tell you what. Why don't you bring the girls over this Saturday? We'll have a little gathering. Let them spend some time with other folks who look like them, who've walked the path they're on. It'll do them good to see strong, successful black men and women. And it'll do you good too." John nodded, grateful for the support. "Thank you, Mother Henrietta. We'll be there." The gathering turned out to be a turning point for the family. The girls were surrounded by love and encouragement, soaking up stories and advice from people who understood their experiences. John watched in awe as his daughter's confidence seemed to grow before his eyes. As they were leaving, Mother Henrietta pulled John aside. "You're doing right by these girls, John. But remember, your job isn't just to protect them. It's to empower them. Teach them to be proud of who they are, to stand tall in the face of adversity. That's how they'll thrive." John took her words to heart, making a conscious effort to incorporate more Black history and culture into their home life. He read books by Black authors to the younger girls at bedtime, watched documentaries about civil rights with the older ones, and made sure their home was filled with images that reflected their heritage. But even with all his efforts, John couldn't protect the girls from every instance of prejudice. The reality of this hit home hard one afternoon when he received a call from Simone's school. As he walked into the principal's office, he found Simone sitting in a chair, her eyes red and puffy from crying. The principal, a stern-looking woman named Mrs. Garrett, gestured for John to take a seat. "Mr. Harris," she began, "we had an incident today involving Simone and another student. There was a physical altercation." John looked at Simone in surprise. She was usually so even-tempered. "What happened, sweetheart?" Simone sniffled, her voice barely above a whisper. She called me a name, a really bad name, and she said I wasn't wanted. That's why a white man had to take me in." John felt his heart break and his blood boil simultaneously. He turned to Mrs. Garrett, struggling to keep his voice level. "And what's being done about this other student?" Mrs. Garrett shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Harris, we have a zero-tolerance policy for fighting. Both girls will face suspension." John stood up, his voice firm. "No, absolutely not. My daughter was defending herself against racist bullying. She shouldn't be punished for that." After a heated discussion, John managed to get Simone's punishment reduced to detention. As they walked to the car, he could see the defeat in Simone's slumped shoulders. Instead of driving home, John took a detour to a nearby park. He led Simone to a bench, sitting down beside her. "Simone," he began, his voice gentle, "I want you to know how proud I am of you." She looked up at him, confusion clear on her face. "But I got in trouble. I fought." John nodded. "You stood up for yourself? That takes courage. I'm sorry you had to face that kind of hatred, and I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from it." He took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "Simone, the world isn't always fair. Sometimes people will judge you or try to hurt you because of the color of your skin. It's not right, and it's not fair, but it's a reality you'll have to face." Tears welled up in Simone's eyes. "Then why even try? If people are always going to see me as different, as less." John pulled her close, his voice fierce with emotion. "Because you are strong. You are beautiful. You are worthy. And you have the power to change minds and hearts. Your voice matters. Your life matters." He gently lifted her chin, making sure she was looking into his eyes. "Don't ever let anyone make you feel small. You come from a long line of strong, resilient people who faced unimaginable hardships and still rose above. That strength is in you, Simone, and I will always be here to remind you of it." Simone buried her face in John's chest, her small body shaking with sobs. John held her tight, his own tears falling silently. In that moment, he realized that his role as a father went beyond providing and protecting. He needed to be a source of strength, a beacon of hope, and a fierce advocate for his daughters in a world that wouldn't always see their worth. As they sat there, the setting sun painting the sky in vibrant hues, John made a silent promise. He would do everything in his power to raise these girls to be proud, strong, and resilient. He would teach them to face adversity with courage and to always stand tall in the face of injustice. The road ahead would be challenging, filled with moments of doubt and heartache. But as John looked at Simone, seeing the strength already shining through her tears, he knew that together they could face anything. The drive home was quiet, but there was a new understanding between them. As they pulled into the driveway, Simone turned to John, her voice small but determined. "Dad, can you teach me more about being strong? About our history?" John smiled, feeling a surge of pride. "Of course, sweetheart. We'll learn together." That evening, as the family gathered for dinner, John looked around the table at his daughters. Each of them unique, each of them beautiful, each of them facing challenges he could never fully understand. But in their eyes, he saw strength, resilience, and love. As they joined hands to say grace, a tradition they'd adopted from the girls' birth parents, John felt a sense of peace wash over him. They were a family, bound not by blood but by choice, by love, and by a shared commitment to facing the world together. The journey of raising these 6 remarkable girls was far from over. There would be more difficult conversations, more tears, more moments of doubt. But there would also be laughter, triumph, and countless moments of joy. John Harris, once a lonely small-town cop, had become something so much more. He was a father, a protector, a teacher, and a student. And as he looked at the faces of his daughters, he knew that he had found his true purpose in life. The road ahead might be long and sometimes difficult, but with love, understanding, and unwavering support, this unlikely family would face it together, growing stronger with every step. The years seemed to fly by in the Harris household, each passing day bringing new challenges and triumphs. As John watched his daughters grow from little girls into young women, he felt a mix of pride and apprehension. The bond they had forged over the years was strong, but as the girls entered their teenage years, new tensions began to surface. Amara, now 22, had just graduated college and was pursuing a career in social work, inspired by her own experiences. Simone, 20, was thriving in art school, her talent blossoming under the guidance of mentors who understood her unique perspective. Tiana, 18, was in her senior year of high school, a star athlete with dreams of playing college basketball. Zoe, 16, was still the bookworm of the family, excelling in her studies and dreaming of becoming a writer. Layla, 15, had traded in her childhood dance recitals for a passion for activism, organizing school clubs and community events. And Jasmine, now 14, was navigating the tumultuous waters of adolescence with her characteristic sweet nature, though not without struggles. It was Tiana who first began to push back against the life John had built for them. As her senior year progressed, she became increasingly withdrawn, her usual vibrancy dimmed by an inner turmoil John couldn't quite grasp. One evening, as John was preparing dinner, he overheard Tiana arguing with Amara in the living room. "You don't get it, Amara." Tiana's voice was sharp with frustration. "You've always fit in better. You don't know what it's like to be the only black girl on the team, to have everyone staring at you all the time." John paused, listening intently as Amara tried to reason with her sister. "Tiana, I know it's hard, but Dad's given us a good life here. He loves us, Dash. Love isn't enough." Tiana interrupted. "He can't understand what we go through. He'll never know what it's like to be black in this town, in this country." The sound of footsteps stomping up the stairs signaled the end of the conversation. John stood in the kitchen, a lump forming in his throat. He had always known this day might come, but it didn't make it any easier to face. Over the next few weeks, Tiana's behavior became increasingly erratic. She skipped basketball practice, her grades began to slip, and she spent more and more time locked away in her room. John tried to reach out, but each attempt was met with cold silence or angry outbursts. One particularly tense evening, John knocked on Tiana's door, determined to break through the wall she had built. "Tiana, can we talk, sweetheart?" "Go away, Dad. You wouldn't understand anyway." John sighed, leaning his forehead against the door. "I know I can't fully understand what you're going through, Tiana, but I want to try. Please just talk to me." The door flew open, revealing Tiana's tear-stained face. "You want to talk? Fine. Let's talk about how I'm tired of being the token black girl in this town. Let's talk about how I can't even go to the store without people staring at me. Let's talk about how no matter how hard I try, I'll never really fit in here." John's heart ached as he listened to his daughter pour out her pain. He reached out to comfort her, but she stepped back. "Don't you see, Dad? You can't fix this. You can't protect me from a world that sees me as different, as less. You'll never know what that feels like." Before John could respond, Tiana pushed past him, running down the stairs and out the front door. The sound of screeching tires filled the night air as Tiana sped away in her car. Panic set in as hours passed with no word from Tiana. John paced the living room, his phone clutched tightly in his hand, while the other girls huddled together on the couch, fear etched on their faces. It was past midnight when John's phone finally rang. His heart sank as he recognized the voice of his old partner, Mike. "John, we found her. She's okay, but she's at the station. You should come down here." The drive to the police station was a blur. John found Tiana sitting in the waiting area, her eyes red and puffy, a blanket draped over her shoulders. Mike pulled John aside, explaining that they had found Tiana's car parked at the bus station. "She was trying to buy a ticket to Chicago," Mike said softly. "Said she wanted to go somewhere far from here." John felt as though the wind had been knocked out of him. He approached Tiana slowly, kneeling in front of her. "Tiana," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that I can't fully understand your pain. I'm sorry that I can't change the world to make it fair for you. But please, please don't ever think that you're not my real family. You are my daughter, and I love you more than life itself." Tiana looked up, her eyes filled with a mix of anger and sorrow. "But how can you love me if you don't even know me? The real me?" John took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "You're right. There's so much about your experience that I'll never fully understand. But I want to listen, to learn. I may not be able to change the whole world, but I can change. I can do better. We can face this together, as a family." For a long moment, Tiana was silent. Then, slowly, she leaned forward, collapsing into John's arms as sobs racked her body. John held her tight, his own tears falling freely. The incident marked a turning point in their relationship. In the weeks that followed, John made a concerted effort to listen more and to educate himself about the challenges his daughters faced. He reached out to Black community leaders, attended workshops on racial justice, and had long, sometimes difficult conversations with each of his daughters about their experiences. Tiana, for her part, began to open up more. She started a blog about her experiences as a young Black athlete in a predominantly white town, finding her voice and connecting with others who shared similar struggles. As the girls continued to grow and pursue their own paths, John felt a deep sense of pride in the strong, resilient women they were becoming. But as he watched them soar, he couldn't ignore the growing fatigue that seemed to seep into his bones. At first, John dismissed it as simply getting older. He was in his early 60s now, after all. But as the months passed, the fatigue was joined by other symptoms: shortness of breath, unexplained weight loss, a persistent cough that he couldn't seem to shake. Determined not to worry his daughters, John kept his concerns to himself. He made excuses for why he couldn't attend Layla's debate competition or Jasmine's choir concert. He started taking more days off work, using his accumulated vacation time to rest without raising suspicion. But he couldn't hide it forever. The truth came crashing down one sunny Saturday afternoon during a family barbecue to celebrate Zoe's acceptance into a prestigious writing program. John was at the grill, flipping burgers and laughing at one of Simone's jokes when a wave of dizziness washed over him. He gripped the edge of the grill, trying to steady himself, but the world seemed to tilt and spin around him. The last thing he heard was Amara's panicked voice calling his name before everything went black. John woke up in a hospital bed, the sterile white walls and beeping machines a stark contrast to the warm family gathering he last remembered. As his eyes focused, he saw his daughters gathered around his bed, their faces etched with worry. Amara, always the strong one, spoke first. "Dad, why didn't you tell us you were sick?" John tried to smile, but it came out more like a grimace. "I didn't want to worry you girls. You all have your own lives, your own challenges. I didn't want to be a burden." Simone stepped forward, taking his hand. "Dad, you've never been a burden. You're our rock. We're here for you, just like you've always been there for us." The doctor's diagnosis was sobering: Stage 3 lung cancer. The road ahead would be long and difficult, filled with chemotherapy, radiation, and an uncertain prognosis. As John listened to the treatment plan, he couldn't help but think of all the milestones he might miss: graduations, weddings, grandchildren. But as he looked at the determined faces of his daughters, John realized he wasn't facing this battle alone. In the days and weeks that followed, each of his girls stepped up in their own unique way to support him through his treatment. Amara, with her background in social work, took charge of coordinating John's care. She researched treatment options, attended every doctor's appointment, and became his fierce advocate in navigating the complex healthcare system. Simone used her artistic talents to brighten John's days. She decorated his hospital room with vibrant paintings and created a series of heartwarming sketches documenting their family's journey through this challenging time. Tiana, the athlete of the family, became John's personal trainer. On good days, she would take him for short walks around the neighborhood, encouraging him to stay active and keep fighting. Zoe, ever the bookworm, spent hours reading to John during his chemo sessions. She carefully selected uplifting stories and inspiring biographies, filling the sterile hospital room with words of hope and resilience. Layla channeled her passion for activism into raising awareness about lung cancer. She organized fundraisers at her school and in the community, rallying support for research and early detection programs. And Jasmine, the youngest, became John's constant companion. Her gentle spirit and infectious laughter were a balm during the toughest days of treatment. As the months passed, John's strength began to return. The treatments were grueling, but with his daughters by his side, he found reserves of strength he never knew he possessed. One evening, as John sat on the porch swing watching the sunset, Tiana joined him. They sat in comfortable silence for a while before Tiana spoke. "You know, Dad, I've been thinking a lot about that night I ran away," she said softly. John turned to her, surprised. They hadn't spoken much about that incident in the years since. Tiana continued, her voice thick with emotion. "I was so angry back then. I thought you couldn't possibly understand me. But watching you fight this cancer, seeing how you never give up even when things are tough, I get it now. That's where I get my strength from. From you." John felt tears welling up in his eyes as Tiana leaned her head on his shoulder. "I'm so proud of you, Tiana," he whispered. "Of all of you. You've become such strong, amazing women." Tiana smiled, wiping away her own tears. "We learn from the best, Dad, and we're not going anywhere. We're in this together, remember?" As they sat there, watching the sky turn from orange to deep purple, John felt a profound sense of peace wash over him. The road ahead was still uncertain, but he knew that with his daughters by his side, he could face anything. The family's bond, forged through years of love, struggle, and mutual understanding, had never been stronger. Each challenge they faced together only served to reinforce the truth John had known from the moment he decided to adopt 6 little girls all those years ago. Love, not blood, makes a family. In the quiet of the evening, surrounded by the love of his daughters, John Harris realized that he was the richest man in the world. The legacy he would leave behind wasn't measured in money or possessions, but in the strong, compassionate, resilient women he had raised. As the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, John made a silent promise to himself and to his girls. No matter what the future held, they would face it together, just as they always had. And in that unity, in that unwavering love and support, they would find the strength to overcome any obstacle. The journey hadn't been easy, and there were surely more challenges ahead. But as John looked at the strong, beautiful women his daughters had become, he knew that every struggle, every tear, every moment of doubt had been worth it. For in these 6 remarkable young women, he saw the very best of humanity: resilience, compassion, strength, and above all, love. And in that moment, John Harris knew that he had succeeded in the most important job of his life. He had raised 6 daughters who were not only proud of who they were, but who understood the true meaning of family. A family bound not by blood, but by choice, by love, and by an unbreakable bond that would endure long after he was gone. As the night deepened and the house settled into quiet, John felt a deep sense of gratitude wash over him. For every challenge they had faced, for every obstacle they had overcome, had only served to make their family stronger. And in that strength, in that unshakable love, John found a peace that no illness could take away. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles to fight. But tonight, Surrounded by the love of his daughters, John Harris was at peace. For he knew that no matter what lay ahead, they would face it together, as the family they had always been meant to be. The warm spring sun bathed Millbrook in a golden glow as the Harris sisters huddled together in Amara's living room, their voices low and excited. It had been 5 years since John's cancer diagnosis, and though the road to recovery had been long and difficult, their father had emerged victorious, his spirit as unbreakable as ever. "Okay, is everything set for next Saturday?" Amara asked, looking around at her sisters. At 27, she had become the unofficial organizer of the family, her social work background lending itself well to coordinating their surprise for John. Simone, now 25 and a rising star in the art world, nodded enthusiastically. "I've finished the video montage. It's got clips from everyone we reached out to, his old police buddies, the church folks, even some of the kids he mentored over the years. And I've confirmed the venue," added Tiana, 23, who had just finished her first season playing professional basketball overseas. The community center was more than happy to host once I explained what it was for. Zoe, 21, looked up from her laptop where she had been furiously typing. "I've got the speech drafted. I tried to incorporate something from each of us, but I think we should all say a few words too." Layla, 20 and now a sophomore in college studying political science, chimed in, "I've reached out to all the local media. They're excited to cover the event. Dad's going to be so surprised." Jasmine, the youngest at 19 and just finishing her freshman year of college, smiled softly. "I can't wait to see his face. After everything he's done for us, he deserves this so much." The sisters spent the next week in a flurry of activity, finalizing details and ensuring everything was perfect for their father's surprise celebration. They had managed to keep it a secret from John, telling him they were planning a small family dinner to celebrate his 5 years of being cancer-free journey. On the day of the event, Amara volunteered to keep John occupied while the others made final preparations at the community center. She took him out for a leisurely lunch, reminiscing about old times and sharing updates about her work at the local child services department. "You know, Dad," Amara said, her eyes twinkling with a secret she could barely contain. "I was thinking about how much has changed since you first brought us home. Remember how scared and unsure we all were?" John chuckled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "How could I forget? I was terrified I was going to mess everything up. I had no idea how to raise 6 girls, let alone navigate all the cultural differences." Amara reached across the table, squeezing her father's hand. "But you did it, Dad. You gave us a home, a family. You taught us to be proud of who we are, to stand up for ourselves and for others. You changed our lives." John felt a lump form in his throat, overwhelmed by the love and gratitude in his daughter's eyes. "You girls changed my life too, you know. You gave me purpose, taught me what it really means to love unconditionally. I'm so proud of the women you've all become." As the afternoon sun began to dip lower in the sky, Amara suggested they head to the community center for their family dinner. John, oblivious to the surprise that awaited him, happily agreed. The moment John stepped through the doors of the community center, he was greeted by a thunderous surprise. The large room was filled with familiar faces, friends, colleagues, neighbors, and community members whose lives he had touched over the years. John stood frozen in shock, his eyes wide as he took in the scene before him. Colorful banners adorned the walls, proclaiming, "Celebrating John Harris, a true hero, and thank you for your service and love." At the center of it all stood his daughters, beaming with pride and joy. As the initial shock wore off, John found himself enveloped in hugs and handshakes, words of gratitude and admiration washing over him from all sides. Tears pricked at his eyes as he saw faces he hadn't seen in years. His old partner Mike, Mother Henrietta from the church, even Mrs. Thompson, who had once looked at his family with skepticism but now embraced him warmly. I don't know what to say," John stammered, overwhelmed by the outpouring of love. Simone stepped forward, gently guiding her father to a seat of honor at the front of the room. "You don't have to say anything, Dad. Tonight is all about celebrating you and the impact you've had on so many lives." The evening unfolded like a beautiful tapestry of memories and gratitude. A large screen came to life, playing a video montage that Simone had painstakingly put together. John watched, tears streaming down his face, as friends and community members shared stories of his kindness, his unwavering support, and the difference he had made in their lives. Mike, his old partner, spoke of John's integrity and compassion on the job. John wasn't just a good cop, he was a good man. He taught me that true strength comes from empathy and understanding. Mother Henrietta's warm smile filled the screen as she recalled John's early days at the church. That man may have come to us not knowing a lick about our traditions, but he came with an open heart and a willingness to learn. He showed us all what it truly means to be a family. Even Mrs. Thompson made an appearance, her eyes twinkling with affection. I'll admit, I had my doubts at first, but John Harris proved me wrong in the best possible way. He showed this town what love really looks like. As the video ended, each of John's daughters took turns sharing their own personal tributes. Amara spoke of John's unwavering support through her journey to become a social worker. Simone thanked him for nurturing her artistic talents, even when he didn't always understand her abstract creations. Zoe credited John with instilling in her a love of learning and the courage to pursue her dreams of becoming a writer. Layla's voice shook with emotion as she recounted how John had always encouraged her activism, teaching her to stand up for what she believed in. Jasmine, the youngest, simply thanked John for always being there, a constant source of love and support through all of life's ups and downs. Finally, it was Tiana's turn to speak. The room fell silent as she stepped up to the microphone, her eyes locked on her father's. "Dad," she began, her voice strong despite the tears glistening in her eyes, "I owe you an apology. For years, I struggled with my identity, with feeling like I didn't belong. I pushed you away, thinking you could never understand what it was like to be me." John leaned forward, his heart aching at the memory of those difficult years. Tiana continued, her voice gaining strength. "But I was wrong. You may not have understood everything, but you never stopped trying. Your love for us was unconditional, unwavering. You taught me that family isn't about looking the same or having the same experiences. It's about love, support, and acceptance." She paused, taking a deep breath. "Your love gave me the courage to embrace who I am, to pursue my dreams even when they seemed impossible. You showed me that I was strong enough to overcome any obstacle. Dad, you didn't just change our lives. You saved them. You gave us a home, a family, and the strength to face the world with pride and dignity." By now, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. John sat, overwhelmed, as Tiana's words washed over him. He had always hoped he was doing right by his girls, but to hear the impact he had made, to see the strong, confident women they had become, it was more than he had ever dared to dream. As Tiana finished her speech, all 6 sisters gathered around their father, enveloping him in a group hug. The room erupted in applause, a standing ovation for the man who had touched so many lives. When the applause finally died down, Amara stepped forward once more, a mysterious smile playing on her lips. "Dad, we have one more surprise for you. Something we've been working on for a long time." John looked up, curiosity mingling with the emotion on his face. "Girls, you've already done so much. This evening, it's more than I could have ever imagined." Simone grinned, shaking her head. "Oh no, Dad, we're just getting started." Tiana stepped forward, holding a large, beautifully wrapped box. "This is for you, Dad. From all of us." With trembling hands, John unwrapped the gift. Inside, he found a framed certificate and a thick folder. As he read the certificate, his eyes widened in disbelief. "The John Harris Foundation for Foster Care and Adoption," he read aloud, his voice barely above a whisper. Amara knelt beside him, her eyes shining with pride. "We started a foundation in your name, Dad. Its mission is to help foster children, particularly children of color, find loving homes. We want to give other kids the same chance you gave us." Zoe chimed in. "The foundation will provide support for adoptive families, offer cultural education programs, and work to break down barriers in the foster care system. We've already secured funding for the first year," Layla added excitedly. "Local businesses, community members, even some of your old colleagues from the force. Everyone wanted to contribute once they heard about it. Jasmine squeezed her father's hand. This is your legacy, Dad. A way to keep changing lives, just like you changed ours. John stared at the certificate in his hands, unable to speak. The room around him blurred as tears filled his eyes. This was beyond anything he could have ever imagined. His simple act of love, his decision to open his heart and his home to 6 little girls all those years ago, had rippled out to touch countless lives. Finally finding his voice, John looked up at his daughters, his heart so full it felt like it might burst. I don't know what to say. It's incredible. But girls, you don't owe me anything. Everything I did out of love. Tiana knelt beside him, taking his hand. We know, Dad. That's why we did this. Not because we owe you, but because we want to share the love you gave us with others. We want your example to inspire more people to open their hearts and homes to children who need them. John pulled his daughters close, his shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. As he held them, he marveled at the journey they had been on together. From those first uncertain days as a makeshift family to this moment of triumph and love, it had been a road filled with challenges, tears, laughter, and above all, unwavering love. As the evening wore on, John found himself surrounded by well-wishers, each with a story to share about how he had touched their lives. He listened in wonder, humbled by the impact he had made without even realizing it. A young man approached, introducing himself as one of the teens John had mentored years ago. Mr. Harris, he said, his voice thick with emotion, I just wanted you to know, seeing how you raised your daughters, how you embraced them and their culture. It gave me hope. It showed me that love really can transcend all boundaries. An older woman, her gray hair neatly coiffed, squeezed John's hand warmly. I remember when you first brought those girls to church, she said, her eyes twinkling. Some folks had their doubts, but not me. I saw the love in your eyes. You taught this whole town a lesson in what family really means. As the night drew to a close, John stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces, his daughters, his friends, his community. He took a deep breath, trying to find the words to express the emotions swirling inside him. 20 years ago, he began, his voice wavering slightly, I made a decision that changed my life forever. I chose to become a father to 6 beautiful, strong, amazing girls. I thought I was the one giving them a chance at a better life, but the truth is, they gave me so much more. He paused, looking at each of his daughters in turn. Amara, Simone, Tiana, Zoe, Layla, Jasmine, you girls taught me what it truly means to love unconditionally. You opened my eyes to a world I never knew existed. You made me a better person, a better father, a better human being. John's voice grew stronger as he continued. To everyone here tonight, thank you. Thank you for your support, your friendship, your love. And to my girls, thank you for this incredible gift. The John Harris Foundation will be a testament to the power of love, to the belief that family is about so much more than blood. He smiled, his eyes shining with unshed tears. I may have given you girls a home, but you gave me a purpose. You gave me a family. And now, together, we have the chance to give that gift to others. I couldn't be more proud, more humbled, or more grateful. As John finished speaking, the room erupted in applause once more. His daughters rushed to embrace him, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. In that embrace, John felt the full weight of their journey. Every struggle, every triumph, every moment of love and learning that had brought them to this point. Later that night, as John sat on his porch swing, surrounded by his daughters, he gazed up at the stars twinkling in the clear night sky. He thought about the little girls they had once been, scared and uncertain in a new home. He thought about the strong, compassionate women they had become. And he thought about all the lives they would touch through the foundation, all the children who might find loving homes because of the example they had set. You know, he said softly, when I first brought you girls home, I was terrified. I had no idea how to be a father, let alone how to raise 6 daughters who looked nothing like me. But now, looking at all of you, I realized something. His daughters leaned in, listening intently. Love really does conquer all. John continued, his voice filled with wonder. It bridges every gap, overcomes every obstacle. What we have, what we've built together. It's proof that family is about so much more than blood or appearance. It's about love, pure and simple. Tiana, who had once been the most rebellious, now rested her head on John's shoulder. You taught us that, Dad. You showed us what unconditional love looks like. Amara nodded, her eyes shining. And now, with the foundation, we can share that lesson with the world. As the night deepened around them, the Harris family sat together, bound by a love that had overcome every challenge life had thrown their way. They had faced prejudice, illness, doubt, and fear, but through it all, their bond had only grown stronger. John Harris, once a lonely small-town cop, now sat surrounded by the family he had chosen, the daughters who had changed his life in ways he could never have imagined. And as he looked at their faces, illuminated by the soft porch light, he knew that this moment, this love, was the greatest reward he could ever have asked for. The John Harris Foundation would go on to change countless lives, to bring hope to children who had lost everything, to show the world that love knows no boundaries. But for John, the greatest achievement of his life sat right there on that porch. 6 strong, beautiful, compassionate women who called him Dad. As the stars twinkled overhead, John Harris knew that he was the richest man in the world, not in money or possessions, but in love, in family, in the knowledge that he had made a difference in the world. And as he hugged his daughters close, he silently thanked whatever twist of fate had brought them into his life all those years ago. For in choosing to love 6 unwanted little girls, John Harris had found his true purpose, his greatest joy, and a legacy that would live on long after he was gone. In the end, it wasn't about black or white, about blood or biology. It was about love, a love that had the power to change lives, to heal wounds, and to create a family bound by something far stronger than genetics. And that, John realized, was the most unbelievable payback of all. The years continued to pass, bringing new joys and challenges to the Harris family. John, now in his early 70s, watched with pride as his daughters flourished in their careers and personal lives. The John Harris Foundation had grown beyond their wildest dreams, touching countless lives across the country. On a crisp autumn morning, John sat on his familiar porch swing, a steaming mug of coffee warming his hands. The sound of laughter drifted from inside the house, where his daughters had gathered for their monthly family breakfast. These moments, when all 6 of his girls were under one roof, were the ones John treasured most. Amara, now 32, had recently been appointed as the Director of Child Services for the entire state. Her passionate advocacy for foster children and her innovative approaches to family reunification had earned her national recognition. John couldn't help but smile, remembering the shy, serious little girl who had first come into his life. She had blossomed into a fierce protector of vulnerable children, carrying forward the legacy he had started. The door creaked open, and Simone stepped out onto the porch. At 30, she had become a renowned artist, her works exploring themes of identity, family, and belonging. Her latest exhibition, a series of portraits depicting diverse families, had received critical acclaim. "Mind if I join you, Dad?" Simone asked, settling beside him on the swing. John wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Never, sweetheart. How are the wedding plans coming along?" Simone beamed, glancing at the engagement ring on her finger. "Great. Sarah and I finally settled on a venue. We want to have the ceremony in the community center garden. It's where our family really began, you know." John felt a lump form in his throat. The memory of that surprise celebration 5 years ago was still vivid in his mind. "That's perfect, honey. I couldn't think of a better place." Inside, the commotion grew louder. John could hear Tiana's booming laugh, mixed with Zoe's softer giggles. At 28, Tiana had retired from professional basketball and was now coaching the women's team at their local college. Her passion for the game had transformed into a dedication to mentoring young athletes, especially those from underprivileged backgrounds. Zoe, 26, had published her second novel, a powerful story about a multiracial family navigating life in small-town America. Her first book had been a surprise bestseller, praised for its honest portrayal of the complexities of identity and belonging. John had read both books multiple times, recognizing pieces of their family's journey woven into the narratives. The porch door swung open again, and Layla burst out, phone in hand. At 25, she had become the youngest city council member in Millbrook's history. Her fierce advocacy for social justice and community development had invigorated local politics. "Dad, Simone, you got to see this," Layla exclaimed, thrusting her phone towards them. On the screen was a news article featuring Jasmine, the youngest Harris daughter. At 24, Jasmine had followed in John's footsteps and joined the police force. The article praised her work in community outreach and her efforts to build trust between law enforcement and minority communities. John's heart swelled with pride as he read the article. Each of his daughters had found their own way to make the world a little bit better, to spread the love and acceptance that had defined their family. As they sat there, enjoying the morning sun, John couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought them to this point. The struggles, the tears, the moments of doubt, they all seemed so distant now, overshadowed by the love and joy that filled their lives. Suddenly, a commotion from inside the house caught their attention. Tiana's voice rang out, tinged with excitement and a hint of nervousness. "Dad, can you come in here? We have something to tell you." John exchanged curious glances with Simone and Layla before making his way inside. In the living room, he found Tiana standing in the center, her hand clasped tightly with her longtime girlfriend, Maya. The other sisters were gathered around, barely containing their excitement. Tiana took a deep breath, her eyes shining. "Dad, Maya, and I, we're going to have a baby." For a moment, John stood frozen, the words slowly sinking in. Then, with a joyful cry, he rushed forward, enveloping Tiana and Maya in a fierce hug. "A baby! Oh my goodness! I'm going to be a grandpa!" The room erupted in cheers and laughter as the family celebrated the news. As John looked around at the beaming faces of his daughters, he felt a new chapter of their lives beginning to unfold. Over the next few months, the Harris house buzzed with excitement as they prepared for the new addition to their family. John threw himself into the preparations with gusto, transforming his old home office into a nursery. He spent hours scouring parenting books and websites, determined to be the best grandfather he could be. One evening, as John was putting the finishing touches on the nursery, Amara found him sitting in the rocking chair, a faraway look in his eyes. "Penny for your thoughts, Dad?" she asked, perching on the window seat. John smiled, his eyes misty. "I was just thinking about how life comes full circle. 25 years ago, I was terrified at the thought of raising 6 little girls. And now, here I am, about to become a grandfather." Amara reached out, squeezing his hand. "You know, Dad, I've been thinking a lot about that lately, too. About how different our lives could have been if you hadn't taken us in." John nodded, encouraging her to continue. "I work with so many kids in the system," Amara said, her voice soft. "Kids who bounce from home to home, never finding that sense of belonging. And I realize how incredibly lucky we were. You didn't just give us a home, Dad. You gave us a future." John felt tears prickling at the corners of his eyes. "Oh, sweetheart, you girls gave me so much more than I ever gave you. You gave my life meaning, purpose. You taught me what it really means to love unconditionally." They sat in companionable silence for a while, both lost in memories. Finally, Amara spoke again, her voice thoughtful. "You know, with the baby coming, I've been thinking about our family story, about how important it is to pass on our history, our experiences. I was wondering, would you consider writing it all down? Your journey with us, the challenges we faced, the lessons we learned. I think it could help so many people." John considered the idea, a spark of excitement igniting in his chest. "You know, that's not a bad idea. Our story might give hope to other families like ours, or inspire more people to open their hearts and homes to children who need them." Over the next few months, as Tiana's due date approached, John dedicated himself to the task of writing their family story. He poured his heart onto the pages, recounting the fears and joys of those early days, the challenges they had faced, and the love that had seen them through it all. The day Tiana went into labor, the entire Harris family descended on the hospital. John paced the waiting room, alternating between excitement and nervousness. His mind wandered back to the day he had brought each of his daughters home, the mix of terror and elation he had felt. After what seemed like an eternity, Maya emerged from the delivery room, her face glowing. "It's a girl," she announced, her voice choked with emotion. "Tiana's asking for you, John." With trembling legs, John made his way into the room. There, on the bed, sat Tiana, looking exhausted but radiant. In her arms was a tiny bundle, barely visible beneath the pink blanket. "Dad," Tiana said softly, "come meet your granddaughter." As John approached, Tiana carefully placed the baby in his arms. Looking down at the tiny face, with her rosebud lips and button nose, John felt his heart expand with a love he hadn't known was possible. "She's beautiful," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "What's her name?" Tiana and Maya exchanged a glance, smiling. "We wanted to name her after the person who made our family possible," Tiana said. "Dad, meet Sarah Harris Thompson." John's breath caught in his throat. Sarah, named after his late wife, the woman who had dreamed of the family they never got to have together. In that moment, John felt Sarah's presence, as if she was right there with them, sharing in this beautiful moment. As the other sisters crowded into the room, cooing over their new niece, John marveled at the family he had built. From 6 scared little girls to these strong, amazing women, and now, a new generation beginning. Their journey had been far from easy, but every struggle, every tear, every moment of doubt had led to this. A family bound by love, acceptance, and unwavering support. In the weeks that followed, John finished his book. He titled it Love Beyond Color, the story of an unlikely family. With the help of Zoe's publishing connections, the book quickly found a home with a major publisher. The day of the book launch coincided with baby Sarah's christening. The Harris family gathered at the same church where John had first brought the girls all those years ago. Mother Henrietta, now in her 90s but still sharp as ever, performed the ceremony. As John stood at the altar, surrounded by his daughters and holding his granddaughter, he felt a sense of completion. The journey that had begun with a split-second decision to take in 6 unwanted little girls had led to this moment. A moment filled with more love and joy than he could have ever imagined. After the ceremony, John gave a short reading from his book. His voice, strong and clear, filled the church. 25 years ago, I made a decision that changed my life forever. I chose to become a father to 6 beautiful, strong, amazing girls. I thought I was the one giving them a chance at a better life, but the truth is, they gave me so much more. They taught me that family isn't about blood or appearance. It's about love, pure and simple. It's about choosing to stand by each other, no matter what. It's about seeing beyond color, beyond differences, to the heart of what really matters. As John looked out at the sea of faces, his daughters, his granddaughter, friends, and community members who had been part of their journey, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. "Our story isn't just about 1 white cop and 6 black girls," he continued. "It's about the power of love to transform lives. It's about the family we choose, the bonds we forge through compassion and understanding. It's about opening our hearts to possibilities we never imagined." John's voice softened as he concluded. "To anyone out there who's ever felt unwanted, unloved, or out of place, there's a family out there for you. It might not look like what you expect. It might challenge everything you thought you knew about love and belonging. But it's out there, and when you find it, or when it finds you, it will change your life in ways you never thought possible." As applause filled the church, John hugged his book to his chest, feeling the weight of their story in his hands. He knew that by sharing their journey, they had the power to touch countless lives, to inspire more people to open their hearts and homes to children in need. Later that evening, as the family gathered at home for a celebratory dinner, John found himself once again on the porch swing. Baby Sarah slept peacefully in his arms, her tiny hand curled around his finger. One by one, his daughters joined him on the porch, each finding a spot to sit. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over Millbrook, the town that had witnessed their extraordinary journey. Finally, Amara spoke, her voice soft but filled with emotion. You know, Dad, when I was little, I used to dream about finding my real family. I thought that if I could just find people who looked like me, who shared my blood, then I'd finally feel like I belonged. The other sisters nodded, murmuring in agreement. They had all harbored similar thoughts at one point or another. Amara continued, but now I realize we had our real family all along. You taught us that family isn't about matching skin or shared DNA. It's about love, about choosing each other every single day. Tiana chimed in, gently stroking her daughter's cheek. And now we get to pass that lesson on to the next generation. Sarah will grow up knowing that love comes in all colors, that family is about so much more than what you see on the surface. John felt tears welling up in his eyes as he looked at his daughters, strong, beautiful, compassionate women who had overcome so much and achieved more than he could have ever dreamed. Girls, he said, his voice thick with emotion, you are the greatest gift I've ever received. You turned a lonely old cop into the richest man in the world. Rich in love, in family, in purpose. I may have given you a home, but you gave me a life worth living. As the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, the Harris family sat together, bound by a love that had overcome every obstacle life had thrown their way. They had faced prejudice, illness, doubt, and fear, but through it all, their bond had only grown stronger. John Harris, once a lonely small-town cop, now sat surrounded by the family he had chosen, the daughters who had changed his life in ways he could never have imagined, and a granddaughter who represented the beautiful future they had built together. As he looked at their faces, illuminated by the soft porch light, he knew that this moment, this love, was the greatest reward he could ever have asked for. Their story, now shared with the world, would go on to inspire countless others to open their hearts, to look beyond appearances, and to embrace the transformative power of unconditional love. For in choosing to love 6 unwanted little girls, John Harris had not only changed their lives, but had set in motion a ripple effect of love and acceptance that would continue long after he was gone. It was a legacy of love, a testament to the idea that family is not defined by blood or appearance, but by the choices we make and the love we share. And as the Harris family sat together on that porch, wrapped in the warmth of their unconditional love, they knew that they had found something truly unbelievable, a love that transcended color, that overcame every obstacle, and that had the power to change the world, one family at a time. John's unwavering love and the incredible bond he shared with his 6 adopted daughters led to a heartwarming transformation, not just in their lives, but in the hearts of those who witnessed their story. If John's story of sacrifice and gratitude moved you, be sure to subscribe for more uplifting stories of family, resilience, and hope. And before you go, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you have done if you were in John's shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments below.